The sound of shattering glass ripped through the mansion just as the sun lifted over the horizon, and the terrified maid flinched so hard the breakfast tray almost slipped from her trembling hands. Upstairs, the general's 4 children, each a storm of their own grief, mischief, and unspoken loneliness, were already awake and apparently destroying something new. No maid survived a day with the general's 4 kids, the staff whispered. No one. Not since their mother's death a year ago. The house had become a battlefield of tantrums, broken rules, shattered things, and deeper, quieter brokenness that even adults struggled to understand. And today, another maid was about to flee in tears before noon, unless someone unexpected stepped in and rewrote their story. If you believe kindness, patience, and second chances can change lives, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to channel name. It helps us bring more stories like this to you. The general, a man feared by soldiers and respected across ranks, was helpless inside his own home. He could command armies, lead missions, and negotiate peace, but he couldn't get his children to eat breakfast without turning the dining room into a war zone. After his wife's passing, he buried himself in work, believing discipline and routine could hold the family together. But children didn't operate like battalions. They crumbled silently, acted out loudly, and hid wounds no one saw. One by one, nannies quit within hours. Some didn't even make it to lunchtime. Some cried. Some yelled. Some simply walked out without picking up their final pay. The children seemed like terrors to the world, but inside them was a grief so raw it had sharp edges. That morning, when another maid ran out with mascara-streaked tears and a cracked tray, the general exhaled deeply, rubbing his temples. He told himself he could handle everything alone. He was wrong. His 4 kids, 12-year-old Ayman, who had turned cold and sarcastic, 9-year-old twins Rimsha and Rania, whose arguments could shake walls, and little 4-year-old Daniel, who barely spoke anymore, needed more than rules. They needed someone who could reach inside the chaos. And that someone arrived at the mansion gates on a dusty bicycle, with a small backpack slung over his shoulder and hope in his tired eyes. His name was Horace. A single dad. A man who had lost much but refused to stop giving. He was applying for the position of housekeeper, not because he wanted to, but because he had no choice. His own little daughter, Iman, had been diagnosed with a severe lung infection months ago. Hospital bills kept coming. He had sold his small workshop, taken temporary jobs, and worked nights. But kindness alone could not pay for medicine, and exhaustion couldn't heal a child. The job at the general's mansion was his last attempt before giving up entirely. The staff stared at him, half amused, half pitying. They had seen strong women crumble in hours, experienced caretakers break down. What chance did a soft-spoken, tired single father have? But Horace wasn't fragile. Life had tested him relentlessly, and he had learned how to bend without breaking. When he first entered the mansion, chaos greeted him instantly. The twins were attempting to slide down the staircase railing on cushions. Ayman was locked in a verbal battle with a gardener over a broken broom. And Daniel sat silently in a corner, hugging a toy soldier so tightly it looked painful. Most people would freeze. Horace didn't. He stepped in front of the twins first, catching the cushion before it slipped off the railing. He didn't yell. He didn't scold. He simply asked if they were training to fly like superheroes and whether they wanted a safer ramp outside. The twins blinked, confused but intrigued. No adult had ever met their mischief with imagination before. Then he approached Ayman, who expected to be lectured, punished, or ignored, like always. Instead, Horace calmly handed him a new broom from the corner and asked if he'd teach him how to use it properly since Ayman looked like an expert. No one had called him skilled in a year. Something flickered across his face, surprise, a tiny spark of pride. Finally, Horace knelt beside little Daniel. He didn't touch him or talk too fast. He simply sat next to him, matching his silence, letting the child breathe without pressure. After a full minute, Daniel reached out and placed the toy soldier in Horace's hand, as if he had been waiting to trust someone. It was only 10 minutes into the job, and something subtle had shifted in the mansion. But battles weren't won with one gesture. The day ahead would test him. Throughout the morning, the children created intentional chaos to scare him away. They spilled juice, hid socks, knocked over chairs, and even locked Horace out of the laundry room. The staff waited for him to explode or walk away. He never did. When juice spilled on the carpet, he sat down with the twins and asked them which color the stain looked most like, sunset or roses. When Iman slammed a door, Horace gently asked him if the noise helped or hurt him inside. And when Daniel cried quietly because his toy soldier's arm broke, Horace fixed it with super glue from his backpack, telling him gently that broken things deserve a second chance, just like people. By lunchtime, something unbelievable had happened. All 4 kids were seated at the dining table. Together. Quietly. Eating. The general stood at the doorway, stunned. He had never seen them like this. He walked closer, confused and suspicious. He expected bribery, threats, manipulation, whatever would explain this miracle. But all he saw was Horace calmly spoon-feeding Daniel while telling a gentle story about stars guiding lost travelers home. The twins were leaning forward, listening. Iman was pretending not to listen but silently absorbing every word. The general had to admit it, the mansion felt softer. Horace worked through the afternoon, fixing things that were broken, cleaning rooms the previous staff had neglected, and helping the kids break their routine of anger. He never raised his voice. Never rushed. Never tired. Or maybe he was tired, but his kindness refused to break. That evening, when the general finally called him into the study, Horace expected to be fired. Maybe he wasn't strict enough. Maybe he wasn't authoritative. Maybe one day wasn't enough to judge. But the general didn't fire him. He offered him a full-time salary, double the listed amount. Horace froze. He needed that income. His daughter's life depended on it. But he also knew he had to be honest. He turned down the double salary and instead requested a slightly lower one than offered, enough for stability but not greed. The general was taken aback. In a world full of people trying to exploit him, here stood a man who chose integrity over desperation. The job became his. Days turned into weeks. Weeks into months. And slowly, the mansion transformed. Laughter replaced shouting. The twins started painting murals with Horace in the garden. Iman began helping Horace fix household items, learning patience in the process. Daniel started speaking, his voice tiny at first, then clearer, warm, alive. The general watched this with a heavy heart. He had failed where Horace succeeded. But instead of envy, he felt gratitude. Horace had given his home back. Had given his children space to heal. Had created a family from fragments. Yet one thing remained hidden. Horace never mentioned his sick daughter to anyone. Until one night, when he received a call that made the broom fall from his hand. His daughter's condition had worsened. The doctor said she needed urgent care. Horace rushed to the hospital after his shift, spending the whole night beside her. She smiled weakly, telling him she wanted him to stop worrying so much. She was only 6, yet she reassured him like she was the parent. The next morning, he returned to the mansion late, exhausted, eyes swollen. The children noticed immediately. Daniel held his hand and refused to let go. Iman asked if something had broken. The twins offered him drawings. For the first time, Horace told them everything. And the children reacted faster than he expected. They told the general. The general, hardened by war but softened by Horace's presence, did something unimaginable. He arranged the best medical treatment for little Aman, covering all expenses without hesitation. When Horace tried to refuse, the general simply said that family takes care of family, and Horace had become